Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something pretty universal. Public speaking anxiety, that feeling, the knot in your stomach, your heart pounding, just dreading getting up in front of people. If that sounds like you, well, you're definitely not alone. It's a huge fear for so many. So for this deep dive, we've gathered some really interesting stuff. We've got insights from a powerful TEDx talk focusing on this unique internal conversation you can have. Then there's some practical, like body calming tips from Expert Academy, and also a set of 6 really solid mindset shifts from a communication coach. Our goal here, to pull out the absolute best bits, the actionable takeaways from all these sources, basically give you a toolkit to face that fear and maybe even, change how you feel about public speaking altogether. Okay, let's get into it. Let's start right there with that initial feeling, pure panic almost. The TEDx talk paints this picture, right? Wanting to escape, heart racing, terrified you'll forget everything. It's just so relatable, that feeling of wanting the ground to swallow you up.
Exactly. And that leads straight into this fundamental choice the TEDx talk highlights. You basically face this decision, accept some short-term anxiety, which is uncomfortable, yes, but it leads to growth. Or you choose a lifetime, really, of dodging opportunities, feeling regret, kind of missing out. And the source connects this to real things like your career path, those big board meetings, job interviews. It's not just small stuff. It's about potentially limiting yourself if you keep avoiding it.
Yeah, that avoidance really builds up. And then the TEDx talk brings in this really striking analogy, the gun to your parents' heads thing. Here's where it gets really interesting.
It is extreme, definitely. But the point is to show what we're actually capable of under intense pressure. Like if the stakes feel incredibly high, life or death almost, we somehow find the words, we act. So the source then kind of flips that back onto public speaking. It argues that, look, the long-term consequences for your career, for your life, those are high stakes too. Maybe not immediate like the analogy, but significant. So when you compare the fear of speaking to that big pain of inaction, that lifetime of what ifs, suddenly the immediate anxiety of the speech itself might seem, well, a bit less overwhelming. It reframes the urgency,
Okay, so that's the reframe.
Yeah.
But how do we actually change what's going on in our heads at that moment?
Yeah.
The TEDx talk suggests shifting the internal script, right? From how do I get out of this to something more like, I want this.
Exactly right. And it's not just passively accepting it. It's an active choice. Like you're consciously deciding to face the discomfort now for the payoff later personal growth. The speaker even suggests a physical action like athletes do, pumping your fist, and actually repeating, maybe silently or even out loud beforehand, I want this. Before, the night before, morning of, maybe even right as you're walking up, it's about telling yourself physically and mentally, okay, I'm choosing this, I'm ready for this challenge.
Okay, I like that, the physical anchor. But what about those specific fears that just pop up, like the absolute classic, what if I forget everything, that blank mind terror?
Yeah, the source tackles that head on. First, it kind of challenges you with, so what? Who really cares? Most people forget presentations quickly anyway. And second, it reminds you, hey, you can use notes, especially at the beginning. There's no rule against it. The really crucial point is, don't let that specific fear condemn you to like a lifetime of staying small and missing out just because you avoided the stage.
Okay. And another big one, especially for some people, English fluency, worrying about grammar or fumbling words.
Right. The TEDx talk addresses this too. It points out that, look, lots of incredibly successful people speak, broken English or imperfect English, confidence, presence that often matters more than perfect grammar. And again, it circles back to that choice. Are you really going to let worries about fluency dictate your future and stop you from sharing your ideas?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Then there's the too many people thing, just feeling overwhelmed by all the eyes.
Yeah.
Especially if there's someone important watching.
Yeah, the sea of faces fear. The TEDx talk flips this one too, quite cleverly. It suggests thinking, wait, isn't this exactly what I want? More people to hear my idea, more people to notice me.
Right.
It encourages this internal thought, not said out loud, obviously, but thinking, look at me, pay attention, I have something valuable to share. It turns the attention from a threat into, well, an opportunity.
Okay, that's a good mental judo move. But what about the feeling of, this just isn't me. I'm naturally shy. I've always been this way. I'm 40. I can't change. That feels like a really tough one to argue with.
It does. And the TEDx talk really pushes back hard on this idea of natural. It uses some strong analogies. Like, you wouldn't accept a disease just because it's natural, right? You'd treat it. And then, more provocatively, and we should stress, these are analogies from the source used to make a point, not views we're endorsing it. He
Like,
even mentions things like rapists claiming their actions are natural. The underlying question is natural always good? Do you want to stay naturally anxious and limited, living with the pain of not speaking up? Or do you choose to become maybe unnatural in that sense, meaning you choose to learn, to grow, become confident, take control? It really forces you to question that I can't change narrative.
wow, yeah, that these challenge the natural excuse quite directly. Okay, so you do all this mental work, but sometimes the physical symptoms just persist. The heart pounds anyway, handshake. What then?
That's a great point. And the TEDx talk acknowledges this. It gives these amazing examples. Sachin Tendulkar, cricket superstar, nervous in his 200th test match. Anthony Robbins, the huge motivational speaker, apparently jumps up and down like crazy backstage because he gets nervous. So the takeaway isn't grit of nerves, it's channelize them. Use that adrenaline as fuel, as energy. The source suggests things like use gestures actively, speak a bit louder, move around the stage if you can, make eye contact, smile, and keep telling yourself, I'm ready for this challenge. This energy is helping me. Turn it into performance energy instead of letting it freeze you.
That's a perfect transition, actually, to the physiological stuff from the Expert Academy source. The whole fight or flight response our bodies have.
Exactly, that primitive response. When you feel threatened and public speaking can feel like a threat, your body floods with adrenaline. And where does it go? Primarily to your hands and feet, preparing you to, well, fight or run away. But obviously, you can't do either in a presentation. So, Expert Academy gives these super simple, practical tips to signal to your body, okay, threat over, no need to run or fight. For your feet, which want to run. Don't just fidget nervously in place. Instead, consciously walk around a bit before you go on, or even subtly during your talk, if possible. For your hands, ready to fight. Just consciously shake them out a couple of times, loosen them up.
So it's like completing the action in a small way
Yeah.
to trick your brain. Does it work quickly? Like, can you do this right before you go on?
Yeah, that's the idea. They're meant as quick resets.
Yeah.
The walking, the handshaking, it's about redistributing that energy almost immediately, taking it away from the limbs and hopefully allowing your mind to feel clearer, more focused. It's a quick way to interrupt that physical surge. Purposeful movement signals action completed.
Got it. Simple physical things. Okay, now let's switch gears again to the mindset hacks. These are from the Communication Coach source. 6 tips specifically designed to cut anxiety by changing how you think.
Right, and these can be game changers. First one. Anxiety isn't actually a sign something's wrong, it just means you care. You're about to do something important. Even pros, like the actor Michael Douglas, say they get nervous. They see it as part of the buzz, the excitement.
Okay, so nervousness equals importance, not danger. Makes sense. What's number 2?
Number 2, you're probably only about half as nervous as you think you are. The other half, that's excitement. They're like two sides of the same coin, that feeling. So those butterflies, reframe them. They mean you're alive, you're engaged, about to do something potentially cool, like playing a sport or acting.
Huh. Half excitement. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, third.
Third is huge. You do not look as nervous on the outside as you feel on the inside. Your internal turmoil. The audience usually doesn't see most of it. Speakers might rate their nerves an 8 or 9 out of 10, but listeners often rate them way lower, like a 2 or 3. The source even tells this story about Sylvester Stallone, Rocky. Apparently, he was super nervous before a speech, but his own daughter came up afterwards and asked how he stayed so calm.
Wow.
Yeah. So the lesson is, play it cool. Assume they can't see it nearly as much as you feel it.
Okay, play it cool. Good advice. Number 4.
Fourth, that horrible peak of nervousness. It usually lasts less than 60 seconds, often just the first 30 seconds. The worst bit is the anticipation before you start, and maybe that very first minute. Once you get into your flow, it tends to drop off dramatically. Think of like a quarterback in football. Might be jittery for the first snap, then they settle in. So remind yourself, this intense part will be over very, very quickly.
Okay, write out that first minute. Got it. 5th point.
Fifth, anxiety does not stop you from doing a great job. This is a big misconception. People think, if I'm nervous, I'll perform badly, but that's just not true. Think about athletes. They're nervous before huge games, but they still perform brilliantly. The very best professional speakers admit they get nervous, but they still go out and, completely crush it. Nerves don't have to dictate performance.
Right, nerves and performance aren't directly linked. Okay, and the last one, number 6.
Number 6, assume everyone is rooting for you. Seriously, like 99% of the audience wants you to do well. Most people have been there, they get it, they're sympathetic. If you see someone frowning, it's almost certainly not about you. They might just have a resting, grumpy face, or maybe they're having a bad day or thinking about lunch. Assume good intentions. They're on your side.
That's actually really comforting to think about. those 6 points together.
Wow.
That really could shift how you approach the whole thing. It's about managing your thoughts, isn't it?
Totally. Which brings us full circle back to those deeper implications from the TEDx talk. The long-term cost of not managing those thoughts and fears. If you constantly hide, constantly avoid, well, you don't grow. Your ideas don't get heard. And honestly, your self-respect can take a hit over time because you know you're settling.
Yeah, and the TEDx speaker, Animesh Gupta, he shared that really personal story, didn't he? About actually paying classmates to do his presentations in high school. That just shows how real and tangible that avoidance can become, paying money to not speak.
Exactly. And then you contrast that with this incredibly moving story about his 90-year-old grandmother, his daddy. Despite facing serious health issues, constant hospital visits, she uses her internal dialogue. She tells herself, "You've always been a fighter." And that helps her push through the pain, even keeps her writing poetry. It's just this amazing example of how that internal voice, that chosen dialogue, can sustain you through literally anything for your whole life. But the crucial part, he emphasizes, is it has to come from you. You have to have this dialogue with yourselves. Nobody else can install it for you.
So it really boiled down to those two paths laid out on the sources, doesn't it? Path one, keep running, keep hiding, always worried, what if I forget? What if they judge me? Or path two, face it, pump your fist, tell yourself, I want this challenge, I choose this.
Exactly. Because to use that stark phrase from the TEDx talk one last time, there is a gun to your head, and those are the only two choices that you have. The choice is between short-term pain for long-term gain or long-term pain for short-term relief.
Wow. Okay, what a journey through these sources. We've hit on reframing the fear, the power of that internal, I want this dialogue, those quick physical tricks to calm the body, and those 6 really practical mindset shifts. It feels like a pretty complete toolkit, really, for anyone listening who wants to tackle this anxiety.
Absolutely. Maybe a final thought to leave you with, building on all this. What really stands out to you about that idea that the gun to your head isn't just about the presentation tomorrow or the meeting next week, but it's actually about the person you are choosing to become or not become 10 years down the line? And are you willing to make the choice for that future you today?